Hello friends, today topic is getting evicted. Let's rant.
I'm on here because I feel like it's time that I tell the full story of how I came to be in the place that I am, a full-time professional artist that's getting evicted in just a few weeks. So, picture this. It is September 2019, and you've just finished a year of social justice work in Washington, D.C. And you decide you're going to move back home in with your mom so that you can afford a solo backpacking trip in Europe. You do the trip, you have fun. Meanwhile, when you go back to New Orleans, you work as a substitute teacher at your old school, which is an interesting experience. And then you also work for another artist selling his art at an art market. A few months go by, and all of the other artists at the art market are like, wait, you're an artist? Why aren't you selling your own art here? Why are you selling another artist's art? And I was like, good point. Then January 2020, that's when I launched Kylie Yeager Artwork. I officially put intention into starting my fine art business. March 2020 comes around and I have my first ever solo exhibition at a public library. I am actively selling my art at this arts market in downtown New Orleans once a week, and I'm working as a substitute teacher during the day, making art pieces at the teacher's desk. It was the perfect situation. I was well on my way to becoming a full-time artist. I was living at home, I wasn't paying rent, life was good. And then COVID happened. So my solo exhibition opened on March 7th, 2020. It was up for 1 week. It was supposed to be up for 2 months. And then I had to go collect my art and take it down because everything shut down for the pandemic. Summer 2020 comes around. I'm working as an art specialist at a summer camp. It was fun, it was great. But during that whole summer, you know, my mom and I were living together. We have a great relationship, but us not really being able to go out and see our friends definitely put a strain on our relationship. And I thought it'd be best, you know what? Let's move back to Toronto. That's where I did my undergrad. That's where I went to university. Let's go back to Toronto, start fresh in a city that I feel familiar, and try to be a full-time artist there. So fast forward to September 2020, and I figure out that an old friend of mine has a spare room where his roommate needs a sublet in Toronto. And I was like, great, this is gonna work out perfectly. So I pack up all my stuff. In February 2020, I saved up and I bought my first car all by myself. And I bought the car for my art career, but the car came in handy so I could pack up and move somewhere else. So I moved back to Canada, quarantined, did the thing, and I realized that COVID was a bit more strict up there and everything was still closed. When during the summer, I think COVID was a little bit better in Toronto. So here I am living in this house with 2 roommates, and I was having a really hard time finding a job. I got a part-time soccer coaching job, but it wasn't really paying the bills. So I applied to some other jobs. I got a job at a daycare, and then I actually got hired as a physical education specialist, and then I got laid off before I even started the job. So it was really tricky. I kept applying to things, kept getting rejected, and then I started nannying. It was a lot. Then comes January 2021, and there was an incident where there was a miscommunication between a roommate of mine. This was a roommate that I was best friends with for 6 years. And he ended up screaming and yelling at me for a simple miscommunication. And that triggered a lot of trauma. And I ended up going into this spiral of one of the darkest depressions of my life. I couldn't get out of bed for 5 months. That's the gist of it. And that roommate also didn't really recognize mental health, so I had to mask my depression in my own home. And after lots of therapy, getting on antidepressants, come May 2021, I found a place, a 1-bedroom apartment with a red door and a red kitchen. And I was like, this has to be mine. I decided to take a risk and pay a little more for rent. And I went home for a month in June 2021, and then I moved in July 2021. And that time, from July 2021 to now, helped me not only recover from that depression, but it helped me understand my worth, my value. I learned how to set boundaries. I went from working at a daycare to working as an art program leader for an extracurricular company to getting laid off from that job. I quit the daycare to be a full-time artist, and then I got the job at the extracurricular company, and then I got promoted in 2 months as their art program leader. And then I got laid off for the summer, and it was my goal to prove to myself that I could be a full-time artist and not return in the fall. And I did it. And I've been a full-time artist since July 2023. And here I am in January 2026. I have just 2 weeks left before I get evicted from this place. I am $20,000 in debt. I still believe that I will come out on the other side and be a successful full-time artist. But this eviction actually came at a very convenient time because I didn't have to pay rent for the last 2 months because first and last month's rent, and because I'm getting evicted, they actually owed me. And I was at my last dollar. I still kind of am at my last dollar. And so now at the end of the month, I'm going to drive back to New Orleans and live there for a month with my mom again. And then I'm going to drive back up after I'm going to put everything in storage up here, and I'm going to live with a friend in Oshawa for a little bit, get back on my feet, apply to some regular jobs, see if I can make some money that way. Nothing that's too strenuous that takes away from my creativity. And we're pressing the reset button. But living in this place, by the way, the eviction, it wasn't evil or anything. The landlords just, they want to reoccupy the basement. The kids are getting older. I did so much healing here, but I just wanted to share how I got here and how I got to be a full-time artist. And in this time as a full-time artist, I've taught workshops, I've done speeches, like public speaking, I've done, I've competed in 11 art battles. I've won one art battle, the first one I ever did. I travel for art battles. I do live painting at events and shows, and I've done several art fairs. I've won awards. So many group shows, gallery shows. I've had 7 solo shows. I've had a pretty successful art career, and I've sold hundreds of paintings. But now we're at a point where we have to take a step back and say, hey, forgot I was doing my makeup for a second. I'm having money trouble. I am going to be houseless, but I'm going to get out of debt by being houseless and being incredibly grateful for the friends and family in my life that are going to take care of me for a little bit. And then I'm going to change the world. So if you're an artist and you're struggling with money, and I think the reason why us artists struggle with money so much is because society likes to believe that art is not important, that art is not priority. When we are in the midst of revolutions and genocides and debt and conflict, uprising, death, life, everything, what's the one thing that has a voice? What's the one thing that can speak? What is the one safe way to share your voice and to share your knowledge? Creativity. Artists are the voice of the revolution. Artists are the voice of change. Regardless if we're the ones speaking or if we're just making the art that inspires the speaker to speak, or we're making the music that inspires the protesters to protest. Like if we're making a dance that inspires the readers to read, to educate themselves. We write the poem that speaks louder than any argument. We are the change. And debt and homelessness aside, I believe that there is so much power in creative leadership. That being said, if you would like to help and support the cause, start doing some research. Don't rely on your algorithms. Start doing some research on artists in your community. Visual artists, musicians, actors, poets, dancers, filmmakers. And you know what I want you to do? Follow them, support them, pay for their services, utilize the information that they hold, utilize that creativity, let it inspire you, and let's make the world a better place for everybody. Check out my website if you would like to support me.
Wild story. What do you think about this video? Comment down below and thank you for watching.